Hi, my name's Bill Ponikvar, and I recently had some issues with my windshield wipers on my 1990 Vet, and I wanted to go and repair it, and there were some good videos out there, but nothing exactly answered how the windshield wiper motor works, especially for the C4 Corvette. So pictured here, what we're going to do is go through and kind of give a theory of operation on how it works. So first of all, what you see here is basically the whole motor. I call it the assembly. It's composed of the actual motor here. Um, in here, there's a transmission that takes the spinning of the motor and turns a bigger wheel in here. We'll show that soon. Um, and then on here is what's called the cover of the motor assembly, windshield wiper motor assembly. And that cover also has on it what's called the pulse board. It's integrated into the cover. I don't think it could be removed without damaging anything. But this is what we're talking about here. So this is the motor out of the car, of course, and on the bench here. Just to give you an idea, this here is the motor that we saw, the windshield wiper motor. This is the viewpoint from if you were looking from the driver's side front tire. And again, this is the windshield wiper motor. It's right up against the firewall here, and you'll notice that there is a connector here called C1, connector here called C2, which this connector is the one we're mostly going to deal with. And then down here, you can't see it, but there is a C3, which is where the motor gets connected. And right here, you probably can't see it very well, is the actual motor itself. Let me get that a little bit closer here. So this is a close-up of it installed. Again, C1, C2. Here's the actual motor itself, the can. And this is the cover with what I call the pulse board underneath it for intermittent windshield wiper control. And then deeper in here is the actual transmission. On this side, once you go through the firewall, is where the business end is, and it actually goes to the linkages and moves the windshield wipers. Okay, so now we know where it's at, what it kind of looks like, and now let's go and see on the bench how this operates. Okay, here is our motor again on the bench, and I just want to go and take off the cover. Well, first let's go and say this is again C1 here, which is mostly one pin is for the ground of the entire system, and like mist feature, stuff like that. C2 is again where we're going to be concentrating most of our time. And then C3 over here is the actual input to the motor. There's a high winding, high speed winding, and a low speed winding. Let's take the cover off. And as you can see, on the bottom of the cover is what's called the pulse board. It doesn't seem like it's removable, and it's integrated into here. There is also this tab right here, which is the ground pin, and that goes and takes the ground from C1 to the entire system for the motor. This is called the swipe, and this pulse board is basically just used for the intermittent wiper feature. And if you can see right here is a little detent, and as this goes across it, it goes and opens up a circuit here. You can hear it probably. Let me see if I could do that better. And that lets it know it's the end of the sweep. I think it's called the end of the sweep signal. And that is driven by this pin right here. So a couple other things to point out. This right here is the output of the actual motor. and that drives the transmission here, which is this big gear. This here is the park relay, which is pretty neat. We'll get into that. And on this gear, you could see there is this detent over in here where this whole assembly will kind of ride when it's running, when the wiper blades are actually moving. And right here, you could see is the park. And when it's caught in this position here, this is when the wiper blades are underneath the hood. So, I'm going to set this aside, the pulse board, and we're going to focus on the off, meaning in the park position, and the low setting, and then the high setting, how that works. And we'll maybe do the intermittent wipers later, I don't know. So let's hook this up finally. So C2 is our main thing here. We have an input here, which is called the gray wire. And input here, which I bent this up just so we could get to it easier, is the blue wire right here. So B and C of the connector. And this here actually is the output from this park relay where it'll connect C and A here together, and this will go over to the motor low winding. So let's go. This is the way it's actually hooked up in the car. There's a white, it's called a gray with white wire, but I'm going to make it white. That goes from here to here. Okay. Ground is the body. I'm going to move this back here a little bit. Okay. So, okay. Ground here is the body of the motor, like in a lot of cars. This right over here, I don't know if you can see it there. Okay, we have a power supply, and this will be the return, the ground. This will be like the battery terminal, the plus battery terminal. Okay. The gray wire, when it's off, is actually at 12 volts. And 12 volts is always there, even in low. In high, it's not. We'll get to that. And then the blue, actually, we want to be able to turn on and off. So the blue basically goes from here, the battery, to a switch, so I could turn it on and off, and then to the blue input right here. Okay, so that's it. So I'm going to turn our back. Okay, so now we're all hooked up. I had something shorted out, sorry. And you can see now, as soon as, if you would go on the stock and turn it from off to low, I know there's the intermittent settings there, but just say off to low, what you would be doing is putting 12 volts, so there's 12 volts on this wire all the time, and then you'd be putting 12 volts onto this wire, which we're going to do with this switch. So as soon as I turn the 12 volts on, you'll see that it goes into the run mode. So it's running. When I turn it off, you can see it goes into the park mode. Now there's a couple things here that happened real quick that you couldn't see. One is, as soon as we turn it on, this actually controls a relay with a little arm that comes out. So when I turn this on, the motor will start running. It gets stuck into this run position here. Okay, it wasn't over here. And then when I turn it off, you'll see a little hook come out to get it in the park mode. I'll show you right now. There it is, right there. Yep. And then it's in park. So it's that simple. It's just the blue wire that goes from on and it turns it to low. And then when you go and turn it to off, the blue wire, the motor goes to park. Let's get deeper into that though. I want to show this one more time here. So I'm going to go and turn it on. And then I'm going to turn it off. There's the hook. Okay. Okay, here's just the park relay, which is kind of cool. It just needs, it's pretty neat, so it needs a little more explaining. So there's basically three components here. There is the coil here, which is the relay. And that relay, all it does is hold down the second item here, which is the arm that comes out to catch, to put it into the park, the windshield wipers to be parked. And then finally, there is, I don't know if you can see in this hole here, there is a switch. And when this is fully engaged, it opens up that switch. I don't know if you can see that little lever in there. Opens it up. So now A and C are no longer connected and the motor stops. Because I don't know if you remember, this one was the gray wire, which was always on. And this was the white wire that went to the low voltage winding. So then there's one other neat little trick here. So this arm right here, there's play. I don't know if you can see that. There's play where it goes up and down. That's intentional. So when it's going into park and it's being pushed by the motor in, it'll go like this until it opens that relay, which turns the current off and the motor stops. So in park, it's sitting here and you can tell it's actually above that relay. But what happens, and listen for this snap, what happens when that relay comes on is it pulls this down. So it actually goes and pulls, I'm going to try that again here. It pulls this down, and then you could hear that relay click on again. So again, when it was in park, that switch was open. I don't know if you saw that lever and that little hole right here go up, and then it reconnects it again when the blue goes on. The blue goes on and pulls this down. It actually like slips off that switch, and then the motor is connected again to C, and it starts spinning. So that's how this works. That's it. There's one input basically. I mean, for controlling it, it's this relay, and it's to go and hold this into place when it's running, and then it's to pull it down to reconnect when it's starting. Okay, pictured here are the actual schematics or wiring diagrams for the 1990 Corvette, the windshield wiper motor. This right here is basically showing what is the stock, or it's actually inside the steering column. The stock actually engages some switches in the steering column. But this is what this represents here, this box right here is that. I try to put a picture here. And just so you know, I didn't realize this at first. I thought there would maybe be signals that go to the actual motor assembly to tell it, turn power on through a relay or through a FET or something like that. And there's nothing like that. The power actually does flow through. It flows through, not this stock, but the switches in the steering column. So the 12 volts comes, right from here from the battery, and it actually goes through those switches. And so real quick on a high end here, there's the analog signal, which is brown, that comes out. There is the, what I call the low speed power, 12 volts, that comes out here, which is gray. There is the blue wire, which is the, what I call the on and park control. So when that turns on, it engages that relay on the park relay. When it's off, it disengages. And then finally, here's the purple wire, which is the high speed. It goes right to the high speed winding of the motor. If you go through all of this and look at it, you basically come up with a little truth table that looks like this. So I'll just leave this here for a little bit in case you want to look at that. But these are the brown, the gray, the blue, and the purple wire. And these are all the different states: off, low, high, pulse, mist, wash. This max means that it's the max resistance, and this means it's the min. So as you go higher in the intermittent, the voltage would actually get higher. But again, we're not really talking about intermittent wipers here. The main things we're focused on is low, high, and off when it goes into the park. The windshield wipers go into the park position beneath the hood. Okay, enough on that. So again, the most important thing here is we're not going to worry about the brown signal. That's for the intermittent wipers. So let's not worry about that. So the three signals we really have are on C2, I'll show that later, but is the gray wire, the blue wire, and then those are the two main signals coming out of the stock for off and low. And then this purple wire gets 12 volts on it with this switch here. And that goes right to the high-speed motor winding. So let's take a look at the key. These schematics are again right from the wiring diagram for the 1990 Corvette. I bought the CD, so I just took the pictures here and put them here. But this is where all the interesting stuff happens. So here again is the brown wire that we saw here. We're not going to worry about. That's the analog in. The gray wire, which will for off and low always be 12 volts, and this is where the power actually comes to drive the motor. The blue, light blue, which is when it's on, it will go and engage this relay here, the park relay. So basically this switch is on here, meaning closed to here. Okay, so we have that. This mechanical arm right here means when this relay is no longer energized from the B. So when the blue shuts off, an arm comes out of, where do I have that? An arm, this is the arm. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but this is the arm that they're talking about right here that comes out to go and put it into park. So when the relay is not on, this is held in, and when the blue wire goes low, that clicks out and catches it on the next roundabout, next cycle, and turns it off, puts it in park. Again, here you could see for the motor right here, that this is the low speed winding. So again, we have the gray input, the blue input, and then basically on C2, we have the one output. So I don't know if you remember me saying here, but this again is the park relay. And there was always the, I got to see which way I'm facing here, the A right here, which would go to the low voltage winding. And you could see right here, C2A is going to the low voltage winding of the motor. And again, it'll be connected to C right here, which is the gray. So it'll be connected to C, which is, I'm not doing real good here, this pin here. And that is, come on, Billy, where are you at? Is right here. So that is C2C, pin C. And then light blue is the one in the middle, which is the blue, the light blue, and is the B. So everything we've been talking about. So the way this works is gray is, if it's an off, it's on. So let's assume we're starting in park with the winch wipers in park below the hood. So there's 12 volts here. Let's not worry about this here, but we could ignore this. So basically there's 12 volts here, and that 12 volts is not going anywhere. It's dead-ended here. The blue is off in park, so the relay is not engaged, is not energized. Again, this is ground here, and these are the wires coming from directly above over here from the steering column. So, so then when we go and flip the stock into the low position, basically all we do is on this light blue right here, we put 12 volts. So what does that do? Well, again, there's 12 volts here always, if it's an off or low. 12 volts comes here, energizes the park relay, this park relay here, which goes and actually connects pin C to pin A, right here. And that goes to the low voltage motor winding, which starts to move the motor. Also, too, it keeps that arm, that mechanical arm, in so that it doesn't get into park mode. So we're running. So again, all we do is we switch this from off to on, the light blue, and that gets our motor running. It holds in the mechanical arm. It puts this relay, or better term would almost be, it closes this switch here so that power goes to the low voltage, the low speed motor winding. It starts moving and everything's good. As soon as we go and we switch it to off, when we actually turn the stock to off, what happens is this gray wire still has power. This light blue goes off, which means this relay, the park relay, is no longer energized. But the key thing here is when this is no longer energized, this switch is still closed. That's very confusing. That's what's the confusing part of this diagram. But that relay is still closed, and it's still providing power to the motor. And that motor will run until this arm right here gets pushed in by the motor turning, pushed in, and then it opens. You're not going to be able to see this, but yeah, this switch that you could see right here. I don't know if you could see it. I showed it before, but there's a little switch right, there in that hole, and you can see it moving. So when it gets pushed in by the motor, it opens that up, which means it opens this switch up right here, and no more current flows to the motor, and it shuts off. So it's parked. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's pretty elegant, and that was a neat way to do it. Finally, for the high, if you'd go from low to high, this gray wire goes off. Not real important. And the purple wire from up above here gets on high, the 12 volts, and it just goes right to the high-speed winding of the motor, and that's it. So that's everything. All right.